Dan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I had a real interesting time reading your book. This is the most in-depth I've seen from the air side of the Iraq War, and I was on the ground in Iraq, and we were talking before the podcast that we kind of missed each other on deployments by months here and there, but definitely recognized that the places that you were flying over and the areas of operations you were in. So great to sit down and talk with you. Before we do jump into the book, let's just get a little background on where you came from, how you grew up.
Well, I was born and raised in Waco, Texas. Mm-hmm. My dad was a letter carrier for the post office for 35 years. We lived in the same house on Erath Avenue my parents lived there till they passed away.
Okay.
But my whole childhood lived in the same house.
And then when you were growing up, what sports were you playing? What was school like for you?
I played a little bit of everything. Being a child of the 70s, like we were, always riding our bikes around and playing whatever sport was, the sport of the season. Mm-hmm. Organized sports, I played baseball that was the sport I played the most, was baseball. I played it from the time I could until high school.
And then at what point did you start thinking about the military?
Well, there's a picture of me wearing an Army uniform like when I was 7 years old. Mm-hmm. So
I got those too.
But, seriously thinking about what I wanted to do in life, as far as I can remember, I always wanted to be a pilot of some sort in the military. And
when did you start thinking about helicopters?
Well, Waco, Texas being in close proximity to Fort Hood, I saw helicopters all the time. In fact, I have a picture of me sitting in the front seat of a Cobra. They would bring aircraft to the county fair from Fort Hood all the time when I was a kid, and the fairgrounds were 4 blocks from my house.
So those recruiting efforts paid off eventually?
Yeah, they did, eventually. What I actually wanted to do at first, I wanted to fly F-16s. And I joined Civil Air Patrol as a teenager with the goal, like I wanted to go join the Air Force and fly fighters. And I would read everything I could get my hands on about, there's a book called Thud Ridge about the Vietnam era war that I read. Anything that I could get my hands on about flying jets, I was doing it. And the Army, flying for the Army, I knew about it, I read about it, but my main focus was wanting to be in the Air Force. And then I went to college and fooled around, and I was actually told by the Air Force ROTC, the professor and the guy in charge. Well, he asked me one day. He goes, "What do you why are you in the program?" And I said, "Well, I want to fly." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to be honest with you."
Not with those grades, you aren't flying.
Yeah, and the fact that he only had a certain number of flight slots to give to people from his program. And I was going to a junior college, so he was straight up with me. Even if you go to finish out at another college, the odds of that guy giving you his flight slots and not giving it to somebody who's been there for 4 years, it's not going to happen.
So did you continue with college? Or did he tell you about the Army program?
He reminded me of it. I knew it because we had a neighbor that actually talked to me about warrant officer flight training and how it worked in the Army. He reminded me of it. I ended up getting a degree in drafting and design, and I worked for a government contractor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for about 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And I remember one day I was sitting at the drafting table, and this is kind of a warning to folks, like, you may not want to get a job doing something that you think you enjoy, because once you have to do it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you don't enjoy it so much anymore. Because I always enjoyed drawing until I had to do it for a living. And I remember sitting at the drafting board one day, I go, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And the next day I went over to the Army recruiter and I said, I want to go to flight school. And for anybody who happens to be watching and who's thinking about joining the Army and wants to go to flight school, don't let them talk you into becoming a crew chief first if you really want to be a pilot. Recruiters, they want to do what's easy for them because it gets them the credit for recruiting. And I don't blame them one bit, you know, because if I was in that position, why would I want to have to go through all the stuff you got to go through to get somebody qualified for a flight slot? And I kind of naively went in there and said, okay, if I can't go to flight school, then I'm not joining the Army. Didn't know that there were pre-study books for, you know, the test you have to take or anything. Just went and took all those tests cold. Still made it.
Oh, well, that's good. Good sign.
You know, passed the flight physical, you know, went to basic training. And I went to basic when I was 25. So, and I hadn't, you know, it was 25 years old in the mid 80s. So I wasn't exactly, you know, working out wasn't a big deal in the 80s. So I wasn't really ready for basic training. That kind of kicked my butt, you know.
I was going to say that 2 years sitting at the drafting table couldn't help much either.
No, it didn't. I mean, I played beer league softball, but that's not enough to get you ready to go, you know, run a couple of miles and, you know, do all these push-ups and flutter kicks and all the stuff that we did.
But you were good enough to make it through.
Yeah, stuck with it, got through that. And this is the cool thing about it. Like, you can go right from the street to flight school. So once I finished basic training, they sent me to Warrant Officer Candidate School. I mean, I got to take a little bit of leave at home. Then drove over to Fort Rucker in Alabama, went to Warrant Officer Candidate School, got through that 6 weeks. Then they told us it's going to be 4 months before you can start flight school. So between finishing Warrant Officer Candidate School and starting flight school, I think I painted every trash can on Fort Rucker.
What year is this?
This is 1986.
Okay.
So at that time, when you finish Warrant Officer Candidate School, you're still a Warrant Officer Candidate until you finished flight school.
Got it.
So when you're on Fort Rucker, a Warrant Officer Candidate is pretty much lower than an E1.